The music stopped. Mid-song. Amy Winehouse stood frozen at the microphone, her hand trembling. The crowd of thousands fell silent, waiting. Then she looked up, tears streaming down her face, and said something no one expected. But to understand that moment, we need to go back. Back to 3 hours before the show. Back to a dressing room where Amy sat alone, staring at a crumpled piece of paper in her hands. It was a letter. Handwritten. Delivered to her backstage just 30 minutes before soundcheck. The envelope had no return address, just 2 words scrawled on the front. Please read. Amy's hands shook as she unfolded it. The handwriting was shaky, almost illegible, but the words were clear enough. It was from a woman named Claire. A mother. She wrote about her daughter, Emma, who was 17 and had been battling leukemia for 2 years. Emma loved Amy's music. It was the only thing that brought her comfort during chemotherapy. Claire wrote that Emma had been in the hospital for weeks, and tonight was supposed to be her night out. Her first concert. Her first time feeling normal in months. But Emma didn't make it to the show. She passed away 3 days ago. Claire wrote that she came anyway. She bought the ticket months ago, back when there was still hope. She couldn't bring herself to stay home. She needed to be there, to hear the music Emma loved, to feel close to her one last time. She didn't expect anything from Amy. She just wanted her to know. Amy read the letter twice. Then a third time. By the fourth, her vision was blurred with tears. She folded it carefully, placed it in her jacket pocket, and walked to the stage. Amy Winehouse suddenly stopped mid-song. The entire crowd went silent. The show had started normally. The lights, the energy, the applause. Amy sang like she always did, pouring everything into every note. But halfway through, back to black, something shifted. She reached the second verse, opened her mouth, and nothing came out. The words were gone. Not forgotten in the usual way. They were buried under the weight of what she'd read in that letter. She stopped singing. The band kept playing for a few seconds before realizing something was wrong. The drummer looked up. The guitarist turned. The music faded into silence. Amy stood there, gripping the microphone stand, staring out into the sea of faces. Thousands of people, all waiting. Some confused. Some concerned. No one knowing what to do. Then Amy spoke. Her voice was raw, breaking. "I'm sorry," she said. I can't." She paused, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "I forgot the words." The crowd murmured. A few people clapped, thinking it was part of the show. But Amy shook her head. "No, I really did. I forgot them. And I don't think I can sing this song tonight." Silence. Then Amy reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out the letter. She unfolded it slowly, deliberately, as if handling something sacred. "A woman gave this to me before the show," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Her name is Claire. And her daughter loved this song." The crowd was completely still now. Every eye on Amy. Every breath held. "Her daughter's name was Emma," Amy continued. "And she's not here tonight. Because she died 3 days ago." You could hear a pin drop. Amy looked down at the letter, then back up at the crowd. "Claire is here. She came anyway. And I can't sing this song like I was going to. Not after reading this. Not knowing what it meant to Emma." Subscribe now. You need to see what happens next. Amy folded the letter and placed it on the stage floor, right next to the microphone stand. Then she did something no one expected. She stepped away from the mic, walked to the edge of the stage, and looked out into the crowd. "Claire," she called out. "I don't know where you are, but if you can hear me, this next part is for Emma." A woman in the middle of the crowd raised her hand. She was older, maybe in her 50s, with tears already streaming down her face. The crowd parted slightly as people realized who she was. Amy pointed at her. "Come up here," she said. "Please." Claire hesitated. People around her encouraged her, gently pushing her forward. Security helped her up onto the stage. She looked terrified, overwhelmed, but Amy met her with open arms. They hugged. Long and tight. The kind of hug that says everything words can't. When they finally pulled apart, Amy kept one arm around Claire's shoulders. "What was Emma's favorite song?" she asked softly, but loud enough for the microphone to pick up. Claire's voice cracked. "Valerie," she whispered. Amy nodded. She turned to the band. "Let's do Valerie. But not the fast version. Slow it down. Make it gentle." The band adjusted. The guitarist switched to acoustic. The drummer set down his sticks and used brushes. The bassist softened his touch. And Amy, standing next to Claire, began to sing. But this time, it wasn't a performance. It wasn't for the crowd. It was for Emma. And for Claire. Amy's voice was different. Softer. More vulnerable. Every note carried the weight of loss, of love, of the unbearable heaviness of saying goodbye. Backstage, Amy made a decision that would shock everyone around her. Halfway through the song, Amy handed the microphone to Claire. "Sing with me," she said. "For Emma." Claire shook her head at first, too overwhelmed. But Amy squeezed her hand, encouraging her. And slowly, hesitantly, Claire began to sing. Her voice was shaky, off-key, but it didn't matter. The crowd didn't care about pitch or tone. They cared about the moment. About the raw, unfiltered humanity of it. By the time they reached the chorus, others in the crowd had joined in. Not loud. Not overpowering. Just enough to create a wave of sound that surrounded Claire, lifting her up. Thousands of voices singing together, all for a girl they'd never met but now would never forget. When the song ended, there was no applause. Just silence. The kind of silence that speaks louder than any cheer. Amy hugged Claire again, whispering something in her ear that no one else could hear. Then she helped her off the stage, back into the crowd, where people embraced her like family. Amy returned to the microphone, wiping her eyes. She took a deep breath. "Thank you," she said simply. "Thank you for being here. For letting me share that. For understanding." Then she picked up the letter from the stage floor, folded it carefully, and tucked it back into her jacket. "I'm going to keep this," she said. "And I'm going to remember Emma. Every time I sing. Every time I step on stage. Because that's what music is supposed to do. It's supposed to connect us. To remind us that we're not alone. That even in our darkest moments, we have each other. Share this story. Let someone else feel what you're feeling right now." The rest of the concert was different. Quieter. More intimate. Amy didn't perform. She shared. She opened herself up in a way she rarely did, speaking between songs, telling stories, connecting with the crowd on a level that transcended entertainment. After the show, Amy didn't go to the usual after-party. She stayed backstage, sitting alone in her dressing room with Claire's letter on the table in front of her. Her manager knocked, asking if she was okay. Amy nodded. "I just need a minute," she said. But it wasn't a minute. It was an hour. Then 2. Amy sat there, thinking about Emma. About Claire. About all the people out there who were suffering, fighting, surviving. She thought about the power of music, the responsibility of it. How a song could be a lifeline for someone drowning in pain. But here's the part no one expected, the part that changed everything. Amy decided to do something she'd never done before. She asked her team to reach out to Claire. To stay in touch. To invite her to future shows. To make sure she knew she wasn't alone. And she did. Claire became a part of Amy's extended family. She attended concerts. She met the band. She shared stories about Emma, keeping her memory alive. But it didn't stop there. Amy began doing something before every show. She'd ask her team to collect letters. Stories from fans. People who were struggling, who needed hope, who found solace in her music. She'd read them all. And sometimes, like she did with Claire, she'd invite them on stage. She'd share their stories. She'd make them part of the show. It became a ritual. A tradition. Amy's concerts were no longer just performances. They were sanctuaries. Places where people could come and feel seen, heard, understood. Where pain was acknowledged, not hidden. Where vulnerability was strength. The letter from Claire stayed with Amy. She kept it in a small box, along with other letters she'd received over the years. And whenever she felt lost, whenever the weight of fame became too much, she'd open that box and read them, reminding herself why she sang. Why it mattered. Years later, after Amy passed, that box was found in her belongings. Inside were dozens of letters. Each one carefully preserved. Each one a reminder of a life touched, a moment shared, a connection made. Claire's letter was on top. And written on the back, in Amy's handwriting, were 4 words. "This is why I sing." But the impact of that night went far beyond just Amy and Claire. People who were there started sharing the story. Videos appeared online, shaky phone recordings of that moment when Amy stopped singing and invited Claire on stage. The comment sections filled with thousands of messages from people saying the same thing. "I was there that night. I'll never forget it. This changed how I see music forever. Amy taught me what it means to be truly present for someone else." Music critics who had been harsh on Amy before began writing different kinds of reviews. They talked about her authenticity, her willingness to break down the wall between performer and audience. One journalist wrote, "Amy Winehouse did something that night that most artists spend their entire careers trying to achieve. She made everyone in that room feel like they were the only person that mattered." Claire herself spoke about it in an interview years later. She said that after Emma's death, she didn't want to live anymore. She felt like she'd lost her reason for existing. But that night, when Amy invited her on stage, when she sang with thousands of strangers all united in remembering her daughter, something shifted. She realized that Emma's life had meaning. That her story mattered. That she wasn't alone in her grief. "Amy gave me permission to keep living," Claire said. "She showed me that it's okay to hurt, to cry, to fall apart. But also that there's beauty in sharing that pain with others. That we heal together, not alone." The impact rippled outward in ways Amy never anticipated. Other artists started incorporating similar moments into their shows. Inviting fans on stage. Reading letters. Creating spaces for vulnerability and connection. Amy had started a movement without even trying. She'd simply followed her heart in that moment, and it changed the culture of live music forever. In Amy's personal journals, found after her death, there was an entry from the night of that concert. It read, "Tonight I forgot the lyrics. But I remembered why I became a musician in the first place. Not for fame. Not for money. But to connect. To feel. To remind people that they're not alone in this mess of being human. Emma died, but her mother came anyway. That's courage. That's love. That's what music should honor." The letter from Claire became more than just a piece of paper. It became a symbol. A reminder that every person in every audience has a story. That behind every face in the crowd is a life filled with joy and pain, hope and despair. And that sometimes, the most powerful thing an artist can do is stop performing and start listening. Amy kept that letter until her final days. And whenever she felt overwhelmed by the demands of fame, by the pressure to be perfect, by the voices telling her to be someone she wasn't, she'd read it again. She'd remember Emma. She'd remember Claire. And she'd remember that none of the noise mattered as much as that one moment of genuine human connection. The night Amy forgot her lyrics became legendary. Not because of the mistake, but because of what came after. Because she chose vulnerability over perfection. Because she chose connection over performance. Because she showed everyone watching that it's okay to be broken, to be lost, to not have all the answers. That sometimes, the most beautiful moments come from our imperfections. Subscribe now. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that their pain matters. That their story deserves to be heard. And that sometimes, the most powerful thing we can do is simply show up for each other, even when we don't have the words. Amy Winehouse forgot her lyrics that night. But what she remembered was far more important. She remembered that music isn't just about notes and melodies. It's about people. It's about pain and hope and love and loss. It's about showing up, being present, and saying, I see you. I hear you. You matter. That night, Amy didn't just perform. She reminded an entire crowd what it means to be human. And in doing so, she gave Claire, and everyone watching, something priceless, the gift of being truly seen. That concert became a turning point not just for Amy, but for everyone who witnessed it. It reminded us all that the best art isn't polished or perfect. It's raw. It's real. It's willing to break its own rules to honor something greater. And sometimes, forgetting the lyrics is exactly what we need to remember what truly matters.